Good morning, children. We shall continue weathering the storm in ersama. Okay. Last time we had done up to here. We shall continue reading from here. Okay, class. So he equipped himself with a long, sturdy stick. Prasan equipped himself. He took with him a long and a strong stick. Okay, sturdy means strong, and then started on his 18-kilometer expedition back to his village through the swollen flood waters. Okay, and then he started on his 18-kilometer journey. Okay, expedition here means journey back to his village through the swollen flood waters. It was a journey he would never forget. Okay, it was a journey he would never forget means the journey got inscribed in his mind forever. Okay, class, he will remember it. Okay, he will never forget it. It got inscribed in his mind. Okay, that journey, that 18-kilometer expedition. Okay, through the swollen flood waters. He constantly had to use his stick. Okay, Prasan continuously had to use his stick to locate the rod to determine where the water was most shallow. Okay, he have to search. Okay, he have to locate or to determine the water. Okay, where the water was most shallow, that is not deep. Okay, so that he can go there, he can walk there. Okay, so at places it was waist deep. Okay, the water was waist deep at places. Okay, the water was waist deep, and when the water was waist deep, the progress was slow. Okay, he cannot move faster. The progress means here the pace was slow. Okay, so at several points he lost the road. Okay, at several points he lost the track of road and he had to swim, class. Okay, he at several points he lost the track of the road and he had to swim, that is to save himself from drowning, class. And after some distance he was relieved to find two friends of his uncle, class. After some distance he got company, class. Okay, of his two friends of his uncle who were also returning to their village. Okay, so they decided to move ahead together. Okay, so all of them proceeded together. As they waded through the waters, as they swam, waded is to swim. Okay, as they swam through the waters, the scenes they witnessed grew more and more macabre, that is horrible. Okay, the scenes that they witnessed, they see, grew more and more horrible. They had to push away many human bodies. Okay, men, women, children, and carcasses of dogs, the dead bodies of dogs, goats, and cattle. These are cows and buffaloes. Okay, and the current swept against them as they move ahead. Okay, the current swept against them as they move ahead. It was difficult for them to move. Okay, class. So in every village that they passed, they could barely see a house standing. Prasan now wept out loud and long. He was sure that his family could not have survived this catastrophe. This catastrophe here means disaster, class. Okay, so let me explain you this one. As the group proceeded, class, they got to see horrible scenes here, horrible scenes. Okay, so they had to push the dead bodies of human beings and animals which were being swept around with the current of the water. And as they crossed the villages, not even a single house was seen. See, they could barely see a house standing. Okay, and as Prasan's fear grew, he wept loudly. Okay, he wept loudly. Why? Because he was sure that his family members would not have survived the disaster. That's why he started to cry, class. Look at here. Eventually, finally, Prasan reached his village, Kalikuda. His heart went cold. frost, okay. Where their home once stood, there were only remnants of its roof class. Remnants is the small remaining quantities, okay, of its roofs, okay. So their house was also gone class, okay. There were only the remnants of its roof, and some of their belongings were caught, mangled and twisted in the branches of trees just visible above the dark waters. Young Prasan decided to go to the Red Cross shelter to look for his family class. So here, when Prasan reaches village Kalikuda, he became numb on seeing the remains of his house. Okay, his heart went cold when he sees, okay, the remains of his house, and their belongings were scattered in the water, and some things hung on the branches of the trees just above the flood water. He decided, okay, young Prasan decided to look for his family at the shelter set up by the Red Cross Society class. Okay, here. Among the first people he saw in the crowd was his maternal grandmother. Weak with hunger, she rushed to him, her hands outstretched, her eyes brimming. Brimming here means full of tears, class, crying, okay? It was a miracle. It was a miracle. They had long given him up for death. Here, what happened at the Red Cross shelter, he saw his maternal grandmother, okay? She was weak, okay? Looking weak, okay? She appeared weak but was glad to see that person was alive, okay? That is why she rushed to him with her arms open, outstretched, okay, arms open, and her eyes full of tears. It was a miracle for her, as the family had thought that Prasant would not have survived the storm, okay. They had long given him up for dead, okay. They thought that Prasant would not have survived the storm. That's why it's a miracle to them, okay, when they saw Prasant coming. So quickly word spread, and his extended family gathered around him and hugged him tight in relief, and Prasant anxiously scanned the motley here. Motley is the desperate, varied in appearance or character, okay. Battered group, these are injured group, okay. He was scanning them, looking, okay. His brother was there, and sister was also there, his uncles and aunts, and they all seemed to be there, okay. So here, as Prasant's extended family gathered around, came to know that he had come, they gathered around him and then they hugged him in relief, okay. And then Prasant saw that everyone was worried and injured, and then he met his siblings, uncles, and aunts class, okay. His uncles and aunts, and they all seemed to be there, okay. Come to the next page. Now, by the next morning, as it took in the desperate situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grief over himself. But what happened in the next morning class? As it took in the desperate situation, this hopeless situation, desperate here means hopeless situation in the shelter, he decided to get a grief over himself, to take a firm hold over himself. Grief is to take a firm hold, okay, over himself. He sensed a deadly grief settling upon the 2,500 strong crowd in the shelter. 86 lives were lost in the village. All the 96 houses had been washed away. It was their fourth day at the shelter so far. They had survived on green coconuts, but there were too few to go around such a tumult of people. Okay, tumult here, this is the uproar of a disorderly crowd force. Okay, class. So what happened here? By the next morning, Prasan realized that he had to get over his emotions and take charge of the situation, okay? So the huge crowd of around 2,500 people in the shelter was full of sadness, and they had lost everything in the storm. So 86 people had been killed by the super cyclone class, and then they had been eating raw coconuts, that's green coconut, but now they were insufficient for the last number of people. Now they insufficient, okay, it become insufficient, okay, the raw coconuts, okay. So but there were too few, that is insufficient to go around such a tumult of people, okay, such a disorderly crowd of people. Class, after here, for today we shall do class, okay.